Hey, Dad.
Hey, yeah.
Do you want to hear a joke?
Yeah, I want to hear a joke.
One day, little Johnny walks in on his dad in the bathroom, and his dad lets out this great big fart. Little Johnny says, "What was that?" His dad says, "That, my son, was the north wind." Little Johnny doesn't think anything of it and goes outside. The next day at school, the teacher says, "Students, who can tell me the direction of the north wind?" Little Johnny raises his hand and says, "Teach my daddy's booty."
Hey, you guys want to hear a joke?
Yeah.
So little Johnny got married to little Susie, and as soon as he got married, he looked over at his best man and says, "Hey, you want to go fishing?" He says, "Sure." So they take off and they go fishing. His buddy says, "Little Johnny, how come you're not at home consummating your marriage?" He says, "Because she's got gonorrhea and I ain't touching that." He says, "That's terrible." He says, "Well, why don't you, flip her on over, He says, "Well, she's got diarrhea and there's no way I'm touching that either." He says, that's disgusting. Well, how about she helps you out, orally?" He says, "Nope, she's got gingivitis." He says, "Well, why did you even marry her?" He says, "Well, you know how much I like to fish." He said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, turns out she's got worms." Hey, John, want to hear a joke?
Yep.
Little Johnny's teacher says, "Hey, little Johnny, I got a riddle for you. What kind of tree can you fit in your hand?" Little Johnny says, "That's easy, Teach. You can fit all trees in your hands as long as they're seeds." She says, "Well, the correct answer is a palm tree, but I like the way you're thinking." Little Johnny says, "All right, Teach, I got one for you. I'm about 6 inches long. You put me in your mouth. When you take me out of your mouth, you spit, and I'm a whole lot more fun when I vibrate. What am I?" Teacher said, "Little Johnny, you go to the principal's office." He says, "What for?" "I'm a toothbrush, but I like the way you're thinking."
Hey, Dad.
Hey, what?
Want to hear a joke?
Yeah, I want to hear a joke.
One day at the breakfast table, little Johnny's mom asked him, "Do you find me pretty or ugly?" Little Johnny says, "Well, both." She says, "Little Johnny, what do you mean both?" He says, "Well, I find you pretty ugly."
You better not tell your mom that one. Hey, John, want to hear a joke?
Yep.
Little Johnny's teacher says, "Hey, little Johnny, I got a riddle for you. What fills up a room but takes up no space?" He says, "Oh, that's easy. It's my fart." She says, "Well, the correct answer is light, but I like the way you're thinking." He says, "All right, Teach, I got one for you. All day long, it's in and out. I discharge loads from my shaft. Both men and women go down on me. What am I?" Teacher says, "Little Johnny, you go to the principal's office." He says, "What for?" "I'm an elevator, but I like the way you're thinking." Little Johnny grows up and becomes a doctor, and he's sent down to the Amazon to investigate complications of COVID-19 in different tribes. Well, he gets down there and he notices that there's no evidence of it at all. But with the first tribe he gets to, he notices that it's all men and no women. And little Johnny says, "Well, how do you relieve your sexual frustrations?" And the chief says, "Come tomorrow morning by river, I show you." So little Johnny gets a good night's sleep, gets up bright and early and goes down by the river. All the guys are standing there and there's this donkey. So little Johnny's thinking, okay, what's going on here? And chief says, "You go first. You are guest." So little Johnny starts rubbing the donkey up and down, and he proceeds to start making love to the thing for about 15 minutes. And the chief says, "Okay, you about done? We need donkey get cross river, see women." Little Johnny's in his first college class and he receives an F on his paper. So he brings it up to his professor and he says, "Do you understand the subject at hand?" He says, "Of course I do. I'm the professor." Little Johnny's not having this, so he says, "All right, let's make a deal. If I ask you a question and you get that question correctly, I will gladly accept my grade. But if you get it wrong, you have to give me an A." The professor says, "Okay, let's try it out." Little Johnny says, "Okay, what's legal but not logical, logical but not legal, and lastly, neither legal or logical?" The professor thinks about it. He says, "I can't answer that question, but you tell me the answer and I'll gladly give you an A." Little Johnny says, "Okay, mister, you're 63 years old and you married a 35-year-old woman. Which is legal but not logical?" Your wife that is 35, has a 17-year-old lover, which is logical but not legal. And the fact that you gave your wife's lover an A on his very first report is neither legal nor logical.
Hey, Dad.
Yeah.
Well, you're probably going to get a note sent home from school.
Why? What happened?
Well, I was standing in line to get my food in the cafeteria, and I see a big bowl of apples. And there's a note in front of the apples that said, "Only take one, God is watching." So I go farther down the line, and I see a big bowl of cookies. And I decided to write my own note. And it said, "Take all you want, God's watching the apples."
Hey, John, want to hear a joke?
Yeah.
Little Johnny was working at a pickle factory for about 20 years. He came home one day and he says, "Oh, Susie, I've got this desire to put my pecker in the pickle slicer." She says, "Little Johnny, there's something wrong with you. Maybe you should go see a therapist." Little Johnny says, "No, I think I can do this on my own. I think I can make sure that I don't put my pecker in the pickle slicer." Well, a couple weeks go by. Little Johnny comes home. He says, "Little Susie," he says, I couldn't hold back. I ended up doing it. I stuck my pecker in the pickle slicer." She says, "Oh my gosh, what happened?" He says, "Well, I got fired." She goes, "Oh yeah, but what happened to the pickle slicer?" He says, "Well, I'm pretty sure she got fired too." Little Johnny was in biology class, and the teacher said, "Students, did you know that humans are the only mammals in the whole animal kingdom that stutter?" Little Johnny raises his hand. He says, "Ma'am, I think you're really smart and all, but I'm going to have to disagree with you. My cat stuttered." She says, "Little Johnny, I'm intrigued. Now, tell me how your cat stuttered." He said, "Well, yesterday my cat was out on the front porch, and this Great Dane came over and went up to the cat, and the cat was going, and before he could say fuck off, the Great Dane ate him." Hey, Jim Bob, want to hear a joke?
You know it.
I don't know if you know this, but little Johnny grew up and went into the Army, and him and two of his buddies got sick and were in the hospital, and the major came to come visit him. The major goes up to the first guy, says, "What's your issue?" He says, "Well, I've got chronic syphilis." He says, "What's your treatment?" He says, 5 minutes a day with a wire brush." He says, "What's your mission?" He says, "To get back out there on that front line." He says, "Good man." Goes to the next guy. He says, "Hey, what's your problem?" He says, "Well, I've got hemorrhoids." He says, "Oh, what's your treatment?" He says, 5 minutes a day with a wire brush." He says, "What's your mission?" He says, "To get back out on that front line." He says, "Good man." He goes up to little Johnny. He says, "All right, what's your problem?" He says, "Well, I've got chronic gingivitis." He says, "What's your treatment?" He says, 5 minutes a day with a wire brush." He says, "What's your mission?" He said, "To be the first one to get that wire brush." Little Johnny's teacher was speaking to him and two other boys about proper table etiquette when they're out on a date with a woman. She says, "Little Billy, how would you excuse yourself to go to the restroom when out on a date?" He says, "Simple. I'd say, 'Excuse me, I got to go take a piss.'" She says, "That's terrible." She says, "Little Jimmy, how would you excuse yourself?" He said, "Well, I'd probably say, 'Excuse me, I'll be right back. I got to go pee.'" She says, "No, that's just as bad." Not wanting to call him little Johnny, but she knows she has to. She says, "Little Johnny, how would you excuse yourself?" He says, "Teach, it's simple. I got this. I'd say, 'Excuse me, miss, but I need to go shake hands with a very good friend of mine who I'm hoping to introduce to you later.'" Hey, John, want to hear a joke?
Yep.
One day, little Johnny's got to go to the bathroom real bad, and he runs in there. And his mom's taking a shower. He says, "Mom, what is that between your legs?" She says, "Oh, it's just my bush." He says, "Okay," and he goes and plays. A couple days later, same thing. Has to go to the bathroom real bad. He runs in there. His dad's taking a shower. He says, "Dad, what is that between your legs?" He says, "Oh, this is my snake." He says, "Okay," and goes back out and goes and plays. A couple days later, same thing. Runs in the bathroom. His grandma's taking a shower. He says, "Grandma, what are those things on your chest?" She says, "Oh, those are my headlights." He says, "Oh, okay." Well, later on that evening, he went to bed, and he woke up with having a nightmare, and he walks into his parents' bedroom while they're getting it on, and He says, Mama, Mama, turn on your headlights. There's a snake trying to get in your bush.